welcome to the Not Move podcast. We have episode 2 of the fantasy football edition. We're really heating up, getting into the fantasy football side of things. We're going to be breaking down rounds 3 and 4. So I just wanted to give a quick breakdown, Otis, of kind of the guys we'll be looking for in these rounds, right? So in round 1, you're going to expect like Chase, Jefferson, Robinson, Gibbs, McCaffrey. They're going to all be gone. CeeDee Lamb, Barkley, Genty. I expect all these guys to be gone. Nico Collins, BTJ. I don't think H-Han will fall there. Derrick Henry should be gone. Drake London, Trey McBride. T. Higgins, I even expect to be gone come round 3. Now, I'm going to start this off with just the guy that I think, especially if it's snaking back to me and I'm in the 3rd round sitting with that first pick on that 3rd round, I'm going to go Chase Brown here. All right. I really like Chase Brown this year, and this is why I say that. Last year, he finished at running back 5. So he definitely was worth a top-end pick. And I feel like if you go with the all-star wide receiver, if you go with the Chase or Jefferson to start your team, I think a good way to go in round 3, if you can, whether it be the end of round 2 or the beginning of round 3, would be Chase Brown. You got any opinion on Chase Brown, Otis?
Yeah, I think that definitely an overlooked guy, even by experts last season, just based on the offensive line, obviously they had offensive line issues throughout Joe Burrow's tenure. And then also, the volume at which they passed the football. It's tough to really see Chase Brown being the guy when you saw a guy like Joe Mixon really flourish because he had 2 skills. He could catch the ball and he could run the ball as well. So it wasn't quite like a prediction of a top 5 guy last season. This season, much more secure in that, 2nd round pick, top 10 guy for sure, probably in the running back slot.
Yeah, I would love to have Chase Brown in one league that I drafted. I didn't get him, and I was really hoping he'd fall to me in the 3rd. And I really I didn't want to take him at the end of the 2nd, and I waited till that came back to me and it snaked back over in the 3rd round, and I wasn't able to snag him. And I really am high on him this year, so I really think he could actually finish. I think again top 5 running back, just because he's going to get the carries, right? That they're going to pass the ball out of the backfield to him. Joe Burrow likes to air it out. I think Chase Brown's my favorite guy, especially if you can get him early in the 3rd round. He's my favorite guy that I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, I think that another guy that we didn't talk about last time, we kind of mentioned him in talking about another running back, was James Cook.
Yeah,
right? He's in that same zone of last year. We weren't sure what James Cook was going to look like. They had a stable of running backs in that backfield.
Right.
And we weren't sure what his carries were going to look like. And I think that, going back to his ability to catch the football, 2nd highest scoring touchdowns last year behind Derrick Henry. This seems like a solid pick right after Chase Brown.
Yeah, and I was doing mock drafts, and even when my real draft came around, if I was able to get James Cook with the 3rd round, I feel like he has that 3rd round value, especially with what he did last year.
Yeah, I think you're gonna see a lot more of production from the tight end position this year, which may take away from his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield as much as he did last season.
And I think especially now that we're getting, all right, so 1st round's done, 2nd round's done, here comes the top of the 3rd round, right? So the 2 other guys that I'm looking at here at that 26, 27 overall pick, right? I'm looking at running back again, because this is when we're going to hit the dead zone, right? So I think after the 4th round, going into the 5th round, it gets a little rough at running back, right? So I'd be eyeing maybe a Kyron Williams or maybe an Omarion Hampton, taking a flyer on that rookie, because I'm high on Hampton too.
Yeah, I like Hampton. I want to see what it looks like. Obviously, we know Jim Harbaugh loves to run the football, so we'll see what happens with the sharing between him and Najee Harris. I would say I'm higher on Kyron Williams than I am on
Hampton.
On Marion Hampton, only because we already know what he can do. It's still unknown. So I would maybe, probably take him maybe a couple picks down. But hey, if you like him, and I don't think necessarily you mentioned it's a flyer. I don't think it's a flyer because I feel like at the end of the season, he probably is going to be the guy.
Right. Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking. We know Harbaugh likes to run the ball. It is a little high. Top of the third round for Amarion Hampton, I feel like, is a little high. And like you said, Kyron's already proven. Kyron is not going to be, like the shared carries isn't going to be crazy, right? Amarion Hampton's going to have to split carries, right? I don't know what the difference is going to be. Is it going to be 50-50? Is it going to be like, 80-20? I'd like to know that. I don't like split backfields. I'd like workhorse running backs at this point. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, and the thing is that like we already know that Kyron Williams had Blake Corum in the backfield with him last year, so we already know the distribution,
Right.
And so like I don't think this is a flyer. I would probably take him about 3 or 4 picks later, but not an outlandish thing to do.
Right. So now we're hitting like 27, 28, 29th pick, right? So that's kind of where we're at overall. Now this is what I see happening. And I've noticed this, and I've done one draft, like I said, even just the mocks, right? Just the mocks that we do. When it's in this spot, this is when we see Josh Allen. This is when we see Lamar Jackson. And this is even when we see JD5. So, I mean, I personally am not going to go quarterback. I know you're not going to go quarterback this early. You know what I mean? But we will see it. It's going to happen in fantasy drafts. There's going to be that run on quarterbacks, and this is the particular time I think the run's going to happen.
Yeah, totally agree with you. I think that once we see a Lamar Jackson come off the board, guys are going to eye up Josh Allen, JD5, Jalen Hurts even at the bottom of this round. I think that if you're a person in a league where this starts to happen and you're the second or you're the third guy or the fourth guy, when you see three quarterbacks get picked ahead of you, this is where you buck the trend, my friend. This is where you buck the trend. So when we talk about this, right, you're going to get value at another position because everybody else is going to start to settle when it comes to the end of the trend, right?
Yep.
So if you're the guy who's in the middle, and, for me right here, my money is on a guy who can produce that's at the tight end position, right?
Yeah.
A George Kittle, would be a good pick here because it's a solid top 3 guy in the position, and if you're at 4 or 5 of the trend, you're the 4th or 5th quarterback getting picked, you're probably going to get a higher end position player than you are a quarterback.
And I'm actually like really happy that you hit on George Kittle here because I saw a very interesting stat because I'm high on Kittle this year. I know you're a Niners fan and you're probably pretty high on him too. Yeah. To me, George Kittle is worth a 3rd round pick. And this is why. He has averaged 12.7 PPR points with Brock Purdy in 38 games. If you're averaging almost 13 points every week with your tight end, you're going to win that position battle. So to me, he is worth that 3rd round,
And on top of that position, the stats that you just gave us, the story behind this is that Brandon Ayuk now 6 to 10 weeks, right? 6 to 10 weeks, he's out of the equation. We don't know what that breakdown distribution is going to look like. Probably going to get a little more, looks and targets with George Kittle out of these first at minimum 6 weeks. And so I really like George Kittle here in the middle of the 3rd round.
Yeah. All right. So now we're looking at, I'm probably saying we're probably within the early 30s, right? Overall, we're like in the middle of the 3rd round. Some other guys that I like here are going to be, I mean, you could tell me if you agree or disagree. I kind of like Tyreek Hill here. I kind of like Devontae Adams here. And then again, I think this is when Jalen Hurts goes. So I'm seeing Lamar gone. I'm seeing JD5 gone. I'm seeing Josh Allen gone. And I'm thinking this is when Jalen Hurts is gone.
Yeah, and to add to that pile that you have there, Lad McConkey might be a guy to go here. He most likely, now again, we know Harbaugh likes to run the ball. That only adds up for guys in the slot. It really does. So, thinking that way, offensively, there's going to be a lot of short game passing off of those play action passes that McConkey seems to get himself open a lot.
And there's guys that I think that aren't going to fall in the third round, and maybe they do. Maybe quarterbacks go earlier. The guys that I'm thinking that are going to be gone by now are going to be like Bucky Irvin, Josh Jacobs,
Yeah.
Lad McConkey. I think might be gone at the end of the second. T. Higgins, I think might even go as early as late second round pick. So if any of those guys fall to the third round, dude,
Yeah.
I'm not hesitating. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Because that's below their average draft position, and those to me are second rounders that if they do fall in the third round, I'm swooping them up. I'm not even thinking about it.
Yeah, and just going along with the idea of that trend, right? Like we built that trend of running backs, which is why I feel like some of these guys are going to fall through the cracks.
Right.
That Tyreek Hill, probably the biggest question mark I feel like out of those guys you mentioned.
Yeah.
Not just because of his quarterback, but in general, I mean, he was like not even top 20 for like 8 of the games last year that he played in,
Right.
regardless of who was playing quarterback. So
Right. And right in this spot right now, like this is how I'm gonna go. If Tyreek, I see the name. Is it just a name value? You have to worry about Tua being healthy. But I mean, Tyreek, is he gonna bounce back? Is he going to be that top guy again? Is he gonna be a top 10 wide receiver again? You know what I mean? So you're taking a risk, taking Tyreek Hill here, right? In the middle of the third round. Devontae Adams, right? New scenery. Guy still performed on the Jets. On that bad Jets team, he still had
yeah,
good stats, right? So
yeah.
I'm not hesitating too much. Obviously, these guys are getting up there in age. They're not what they used to be, right?
Yeah, and with Adams, you have the back soreness that we're looking at with Matthew Stafford, which is a guy before this report came out this week.
Mhm.
I really liked later in the rounds, round 12, 13, as your backup quarterback.
Right.
I mean, it's tough to see what's going to happen here. Where I mean, he's not going to play at all in the preseason, most likely. So you're not going to get any look at all.
And I've even asked Ram fans, right? So this drops the stock on Puka, this drops the stock on Devontae because the insurity, are they actually hiding a major injury and they don't want to tell us? Or is this no big deal and he's going to be ready to go week one? We don't know. So you're definitely taking a risk with Puka and you're definitely taking a risk with Devontae because we're not sure what Stafford is yet, right?
Yeah, yeah, agreed.
I mean,
Agreed.
that worries me. And I've asked Rams fans, they don't have no clue, on the app. They can't tell me anything. So I mean, unless you got an inside source that I don't know about, like I think we're all kind of in the dark with him. And I see Matthew Stafford falling, like not even getting drafted, Otis.
Yeah, I mean, like I said to you, I think I told you guys last year, I drafted Goff and Stafford back to back in
Right.
the 12th and 13th round, which, I mean, for me, I felt like there was a lot of value out of Goff. And then I
Oh
had
yeah.
Stafford to fall back on.
Yeah.
I didn't think that was a bad safety net, but you're right. I don't know if he gets drafted in the beginning based on the question marks surrounding his injury.
Yeah, I even tried to look up like what Sean McVay said about it. Like they're being real quiet about that, and it worries me a little bit with certain Rams players. Obviously, I talked about Kyron Williams earlier in this round, and he's not going to be an issue because he's going to get his carries, right? He's
Yeah.
gonna tote the rock. I feel a lot more comfortable drafting Kyron Williams right now than I do Devontae Adams because I'm unsure about Matthew Stafford if he's going to be 100%. What's going
For
on with that
sure.
back? You know what I mean?
For sure. And I mean, it would be an amazing story if we see Jimmy Garoppolo
Oh my gosh.
quarterbacking the Rams against the 49ers in that early part of the schedule. I mean, what storylines would be drawn there? And like you said, if it's going to be an issue, Kyron Williams is definitely the solid guy who's going to get the touches.
Right. Another name I want to bring up here because now we're getting towards the end of the third round, right? Another name I like here is Garrett Wilson. Okay.
Yeah.
Again, we have to worry about the quarterback play, right? But Garrett Wilson has been solid. Garrett Wilson was solid with Aaron Rodgers, right? And we don't know how healthy Justin Fields. It sounds like he's going to be good to go with his injury,
Yeah.
but he's their number one guy. He just got paid the fat contract, right? He's going to get his targets, right?
He should. I mean, I don't see, a whole lot of target sharing
Right.
going on in that offense. It just,
Like Garrett Wilson is the guy there, right?
Right.
And this is why he's worth it to me in the third round, the end of the third round, middle third round. I like Garrett Wilson here personally.
Yeah, high volume. And another guy to go along with Garrett Wilson is Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin is going to see the same kind of production, regardless of whether Debo's there or not. The distribution of the football has been consistent for him. He's always got 1,000 yards. Now, the amount of touchdowns drastically increased, right? We saw his rookie year, he had 7. Then he went 4-5, 4-5, 4-5, and then 13 last year. Right. So, if that can be, even if it's 10, still great for Terry McLaurin.
So now we're kind of getting into the top of the fourth round, right? In my opinion, that we're talking 37th pick overall, top of the fourth round. I'm gonna go back on what you said. I like Scary Terry at the top of the fourth, right? Yeah. If he is sitting there at the top of the fourth round and I'm in that spot, I want Scary Terry there. Like you said, Mr. Consistency, always 1,000 yards. Another guy I like here is JSN, right?
Yes, right on it.
Right
on it. Totally agree with that.
All right,
yeah,
awesome.
I think that just looking at not necessarily a production, but the way that he plays football, Sam Darnold is going to be looking JSN's direction a lot.
I think so too.
In that offense.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't feel like there's a question about that. He is the clear number one now that DK is gone. And he's a similar, not necessarily in that realm of skill set, but he's a similar receiver like Justin Jefferson, Jay Jettis.
Now, when we get into this 39, 40, 41, so we're looking at like 4th, 5th, and 6th pick in the top of the fourth round. Here's guys that I'm not quite as high on, right? So they still got good name value. They're still going to get their targets. They're still going to get their catches. But I'm not really super high on the next two guys I'm about to tell you about.
Yeah.
The next two guys I'm going to mention is going to be Marvin Harrison Jr., right? That's the first guy I'm going to mention here, okay? Because he wasn't Malik Neighbors last year. He wasn't Brian Thomas Jr. last year, he wasn't a Lad McConkey. He was drafted super high, and he was supposed to be this, this amazing freak athlete. We know who his father is, obviously. Great wide receiver, one of the greats, one of the legends. But he underperformed last year. And did you think Marvin Harrison Jr. could break out this year? Do you think, this could be it?
I think it's possible. And a couple of reasons is that I feel like Kyler Murray is going to be a little bit more consistent than he was last year, just giving him the benefit of the doubt. And so in that same breath, that's naturally going to increase the production of Marvin Harrison Jr.
Right, exactly. And I want to double down on what you said earlier. If James Cook is there at the end of the third, I would even take him early third. But if James Cook is sitting there, because he was dropping a lot before this contract, right?
Yeah.
And if he's sitting there, I'm taking him before a lot of these other guys I just mentioned, right?
Yeah. You got to, like I said, second behind Henry as far as running backs touchdowns go. But in the meantime, you're looking at the development of all these other receivers that Josh Allen is dealing with. And, you got two consistent guys there on that side of the ball, and that's Shakir and that's James Cook.
So the other name I was going to mention was Xavier Worthy, right? So we got the Rashee Rice situation, right? He could get suspended up to 10 games. I don't think it'll be 10, but he is their clear-cut number one when he's on the field, and he's the guy, right? The guy balled out. The guy was right there. He was in the top 3 of wide receivers before his injury, the friendly fire between him and Patrick Mahomes where he went down. Now, I had Rashee Rice last year in fantasy, and he was performing at an elite level as like a top 5 wide receiver, especially in fantasy. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Now, are you high on Xavier Worthy, especially with
I wouldn't say this is an outlandish pick either or a reach in this position. Like you said, we're getting into the fourth round here. This is a guy who scores consistently in 20 plus yards out. Right. I think he had last year the first or second most 50 plus yard touchdowns.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of explosive player is really going to get you some value. I know in some leagues, depending on how long the touchdown is, you're getting extra points. In my league, if you get a 20+ yard first down, and you get an extra bonus point for that. So if you're looking for an explosive guy, and on top of that, he is also being used in a Debo-esque type of role. He's been taking some of those end arounds, on that Chiefs offense.
And like I said, I think the 5th round is the dreaded running back dead zone, right? So the next guys I want to hit on are going to be running backs, right? So this is going to be that last stretch, in my opinion, of good workhorse running backs that are going to get you consistent points every week, right? And they won't let you down. They will have a bad game here and there, but they still are the main back, right? They're toting the rock the most. And the next guy I want to hit on is going to be Alvin Kamara, right? Alvin Kamara, I would go with next, right? So now we're sitting at like the middle of the 4th round, and this is when I see another trend going where people are going to start wanting to get that other running back, right? I saw people that go 1st round running back, 2nd round running back, 3rd round running back, right? They go super crazy on running backs, especially if you draft like
as I said before in the previous episode. I'm looking for 3 running backs in the first 5 rounds. Yeah. So if I can get them in 4 rounds, then great. And again, that other pick is going to be a high-end wide receiver, high-end tight end, or high-end quarterback.
Now, obviously, the thing we have to worry about with Kamara is I think the Saints are going to be down a lot, right? They're going to have to pass the ball. Maybe he gets some catches out of the backfield, but that's going to take away from some of his carries, right? Because I feel like they're going to be playing from behind, right?
Yeah. I think that, unless something happens we don't see, they're probably in the bottom 5 of the entire league. Right. As far as wins are going to go. What I don't know is if Kellen Moore is going to really want to pass the ball as much as you would think.
Right.
So in that sense, I still think he's a solid back. But maybe his rushing yards does take a 100 to 200 yard hit. But again, if they're going to air it out, he is a versatile guy.
And I've always liked him since he's come into the league. He's always been productive, right? He's always had the upside of catching the ball out of the backfield. He's explosive. We all remember that historic fantasy football night, where, you remember that night where he went off? Yeah. I mean, he's still got that capability. He's obviously not the running back. He's getting older that he used to be, but, he's getting older. But I think that he is still serviceable, and I wouldn't mind getting Alvin Kamara like middle of the 4th round. I feel confident if I get a guy like Kamara here.
Yeah, and another guy, I don't know how you feel about it. Another guy I like in the same thing is Chuba Hubbard. I like Chuba Hubbard. I think that he's going to get. I mean, they've moved on from Miles Sanders being in that backfield because Chuba Hubbard is just a consistent back for them in that offense.
And I feel confident, like if I'm in this draft and let's say I went wide receiver round 1, right? And then I got a running back in round 2, you could even get your quarterback if that's what you want to do in round 3. But then if you go wide receiver there, that's fine. But then you're going to have to go and get another running back, right? You want 2 to 3 good running backs because especially if you're in flex leagues, you're going to need more than 2 running backs. And this is when I said, this is when the dead zone happens, right? I'm high on Chuba Hubbard as well. I like him here.
Yeah. I mean, and if we're talking standard leagues, right, we're talking a quarterback, two receivers, 2 running backs, and a flex. If you can get a running back in that flex position who has the output that these guys that we're talking about have, you are in a better position than having a receiver in that flex position because the receivers don't always get the ball. If a guy has 7 catches, that's a really good game. Right. For somebody who plays receiver. When you have a guy who can average between 15 and 20 touches with runs and catches, you're doubling that production output, and it makes it a better and consistent pick for you.
I think another name that's going to be here, because now we're like roughly about middle of the 4th round. I think another guy you want to look out here if you want to go receiver is going to be Mike Evans.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
We've had a lot of talks about Mike Evans, being consistent in that offense, 11,000-yard seasons, not as much touchdowns anymore,
right.
but consistently in a PPR league, if you're not a guy getting touchdowns, you're a guy getting targets and getting catches and getting yards, you're still going to be valuable in this fourth round.
Exactly. The other guy I wanted to hit on, because this is when I think, like, this is when I was drafting, I'm like, dang, running backs there's few and far between at this point, right? The other big name I like here is Kenneth Walker.
Yeah,
of the
totally
Seahawks.
agree. If you look at, the idea of the offense last year under their head coach and offense coordinator, which is the same this year, they wanted to run the ball, regardless of whether Geno Smith was throwing, balling out, they were trying to run the ball in a concerted effort to keep their team in the game as much as possible. Now, Geno Smith threw the ball around a lot, for their team. So, but again, whether it was Charbonnet or Kenneth Walker, they were trying to run the football.
Yeah. And it worked out pretty good for me. So I took Kenneth Walker pretty high last year, right here in this fourth round, right? I took Kenneth Walker and I handcuffed him with Charbonnet, right? Yeah. Charbonnet had that one electric game too, and Kenneth Walker was fairly consistent while he was healthy. I mean, I don't think he underperformed. I got my value from him in the fourth round. He did miss a couple weeks, but I was able to plug and play and survive enough to make it to the championship because he was consistent enough and he was getting enough carries, right? That's two things that I look for when I'm drafting, right? I want to see the guys that are getting targets and I want to see the guys that are getting carries, and I want them on my squad.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in the fourth and fifth round, those are the guys, those high volume guys are the guys you need, right? These are essentially the guys really that are going to win you the championship.
Exactly. Now we're getting towards the end of the fourth round. We're looking at like 46, 47, 48th overall pick. The names that kind of stick out to me here is going to be, the first one is going to be a wide receiver. It's going to be DJ Moore. Okay. Whenever I see that name DJ Moore and he's falling to me like, fourth roundish, I like him here. I like him a lot here.
Yeah. I mean, now that Keenan Allen, right, is out of that offense now, and we got Roma Dunze coming in, and I feel like, Kmet is still serviceable. He's clearly going to be the number one option if he wasn't before. And this is a guy who flies under the radar a lot in his career,
And he's been consistent too. Like I was looking at his stats. Man, the guy has been consistent since he's been in the league. He doesn't have that big flashy name, He's not a CeeDee Lamb, he's not a Jamar Chase, but the guy is right there, I think, with like the Mike Evans, right under Scary Terry, Rashee Rice. These are guys that I like here. I like DJ Moore here, and then the next name is Rashee Rice, right? So this one is tough, right? Because I see him falling to like this bottom of the fourth round, top of the fifth round, and it's because of the looming suspension, right? You might really hit on this guy if you draft this guy and for some reason he only gets, let's say he gets 3 to 4 games, right? A 3 to 4 game suspension. A fully healthy Rashee Rice is an elite wide receiver, in my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, obviously the detraction is how many games is he going to miss. I think that when we talk about Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice, they're not far away from each other. So it makes sense to kind of have that ability to have one or the other. And I think Rashee Rice, if he's able to get this suspension down to 4 games, not a terrible pick here. Another guy I like is DK Metcalf. He's a guy that I think can also be in that productive role, especially George Pickens being gone
right.
with Aaron Rodgers. And we already saw, DK Metcalf's not Devontae Adams, but Devontae Adams and DK Metcalf win 50-50 balls for sure. So,
yeah. So the guy I like at the very last pick here. So now we're at pick 48, which is going to be, if you're in a 12-man league, this is going to be the last pick of the fourth round, right? This is who I drafted in my league. So in my league, We drafted way too early too. I hate drafting early like
Yeah,
this.
we talked about that last time.
Yeah, I hate it, man.
The
So
injuries will pile up on you if you do it too early.
yeah, so I like I was telling you, I went running back, wide receiver, and then in the fourth round, I took my second running back, right? And I took James Conner here, right? Now, I feel like he was one of the last big names that I feel like he is definitely the number one back, right? He's not going to be in a super bad split backfield, right? He is their running back. So this is why I took James Conner here, right? Because I feel like the value was there. And I mean, he is playing for a bad Cardinals team. The Cardinals are not a great team, but I feel like they can be competitive enough to be in games. And I think he will at least get the carries.
Yeah, and I think that James Conner, along with Benson in that backfield, is kind of why James Conner's stock drops this far. I mean, if this was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, James Conner's probably in that third round.
Yeah.
But with them drafting Benson last year, and another guy to talk about is Breece Hall. He's another guy who's probably going to be the number one and get a lot of touches. So
Again, and now, like I said, this is like you're getting good name values, right? Breece Hall, James Conner, they're good. They look great on paper, right? They're the number one back there. I don't know if that Jets team was just that bad, but Breece Hall didn't get used a lot last year compared to how I thought he was going to be used, right? And I know a lot of people that actually spent that third or fourth round pick on Breece Hall were probably disappointed, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That Braylon Allen kid, he was balling out. He was playing pretty dang good, right? And that almost became like a split backfield. And that's one thing I do not want in fantasy, right? I do not want a guy that's going to steal half of my carries. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I feel like that when we get that kind of shared backfield platoon, so to speak. I mean, and by the way, this is the way that when we're talking regular football, the NFL is, been doing this for a decade or more now. I mean, if you look at the last, 15 or 20 Super Bowl winners, right? They've had a platoon at running back most of the time. Last year we had Saquon Barkley, but when we had Pacheco, they had Lamar Hunt. When we are not Lamar Hunt. That's the guy who owns the team.
Yeah.
But Hunt and Pacheco split the backfield. Right?
Hunt, yeah.
Here's why I like Breece Hall, though, this year. I like him because we have a mobile quarterback.
Right.
So I feel like they're going to enhance that in the offense. Right. So that might be one of the reasons you might want to go with Breece Hall.
And it might be a steal. Maybe he has a bounce back year. You got him at the end of the fourth round. The guy ends up turning out to be a top 10 back. Like, I can see all this happening, right?
Yeah.
It's easier said than done, but I could see all of this definitely happening. Breece Hall is still a very good, serviceable running back. I've liked what I've seen out of him. It's just I don't think the Jets used him right last year, right?
Yeah, I think that, we saw a lot of influence in the offense through Aaron Rodgers. And, I feel like it's going to kind of balance out now with Aaron Glenn there. I mean, if you look at Aaron Glenn, he came from Detroit, their offensive coordinator, ran the ball and then play action passed, which is where you got all that production out of Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yeah.
And, I feel like this shouldn't be much of a deviance from that type of philosophy.
Right. And the other guy that's really hard to pass on right here, so we're talking end of the fourth, top of the fifth round, right? The other guy that it's just hard to pass on him unless you are trying to stack your team, like we said, with running backs and wide receivers. Joe Burrow could still be there, right?
Oh, yeah.
With how well Joe Burrow played, if you use Joe Burrow on a late fourth round, top of the fifth round, I don't feel like you're reaching too much personally.
No, I feel like this is the perfect time, that bottom of the fourth. Like we talked about with Lamar, bottom of the second, top of the third, you could be looking at a Lamar Jackson if there's no run on quarterbacks prior to that middle of the third round.
And
Yeah.
obviously, you're going to draft off you can either go best available, right? What falls to you, right? Or you can go in with like a strategy, right? I'm going to go running back heavy. I'm going to go wide receiver heavy. I know I'm going to go try to. I like people. I even like stacking players, right? So the two guys that I'm high on stacking would be probably this Joe Burrow. And if I could stack him with Jamar Chase or even T. Higgins, like that's a nasty combo.
Yeah, and the thing is that that's a tandem, whether it be T. Higgins and Joe Burrow or Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, that you don't have to worry about production. They're
Yeah.
not going to have bad days, and both of them are going to be terrible.
Right.
They're always going to be in that highly productive area.
So yeah, the other guy that I think could possibly, I mean, you might be reaching. I feel like we're getting into guys that you're going to start reaching on, right? So to me, the guys that I just listed, the 12 guys that I just listed, I think I listed now 13, 14 guys. So now we're talking top of the fifth, right? So I don't want to go too far in the top of the fifth, but I feel like you're really reaching here, right? I feel like the guys that we're talking about now, you might be reaching on a little bit. And there's one big name I actually want to hit on before we kind of end this, and that's going to be a guy that we talked about last week, and he is falling down drafts, and it's because he's injured, and that's Joe Mixon.
Yeah. Yeah. Joe Mixon is going to be a tough call here. Just because, I mean, they obviously brought in Nick Chubb for a reason. So they're trying to lighten the load for him just a little bit. And that 5 to 8 touches that he gets taken away from him on the ground, most likely by Chubb, is going to be, I think, going to be something that moves him into that 5th round.
So yeah, the to me personally, because we're talking only like 3rd and 4th round, if I can get Chase Brown, that's going to be my favorite, right? I'm really high on him. If you can get George Kittle, right? We hit on George Kittle. These are the guys I'm looking for. I'm looking for Chase Brown here. I'm looking for George Kittle in the 3rd round. Those are the 2 names I like the most out of everyone we listed, right? I'm going to wait on quarterback just like you. 4th round, I really like JSN and I really like Scary Terry, if that's possible. You know what I mean? It all depends on your draft order. It all depends on how it snakes back to you. But I'm high on JSN and Scary Terry. I feel like they could both finish top 10 wide receivers, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I know that a lot of people are going to be shying away from Scary Terry because they don't know how the contract situation is going to be handled. But at the end of the day, guys, like we got to think about the team wants to win, so they're going to get a deal done. I mean, we looked at the last couple seasons. We've seen guys get signed, a week before the season's actually going to start, the day after their last preseason game. So don't be afraid to take the shot. If he's out 2 games, okay, I don't see a problem. It is what it is. You missed out on a couple of games, but I think that him and we talked about Garrett Wilson in this round are 2 guys that you should not shy away from. Right. In that 4th round.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, I don't want to dig too far into the 5th and 6th round because we're going to hit on it next week. But this is when it starts getting rough, right? So if we just work off of this episode and our last episode, all right, Josh Allen's gone. Lamar Jackson's gone. JD5's gone. Jalen Hurts is gone. And maybe even Burrow's gone at this point, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, like you said, Joe Burrow being taken at the bottom of the 4th, top of the 5th is a perfect spot for him. What are you thinking here just after that, top of that 5th round?
What about it?
What are you thinking about just after the top of the 5th round? So we talked about Joe Mixon, possibly top of the 5th round. What's another guy? Because I like a guy on your team at the top of the 5th round as well.
So yeah, that's exactly where I have him ranked. I have him ranked at 52. So I have him going 4th in that 5th round, right? I have him going like in the top of this 5th round. That's Cortland Sutton, right? He's their number 1 guy. He looked really good last year. The emergence of Bo Nix is definitely going to help his stock, right? And I know guys that are even like really high on stacking him, right? So you can stack Bo Nix, right? You can wait and get Bo Nix later. Stack him with Cortland Sutton, and I feel like they have fantasy value. And it's been a while that the Broncos have had a high offensive value, right? So for me, Cortland Sutton going in the top of the 5th, that's a big deal to me. Like, it's been a while that I could have
Oh, yeah.
actually draft a running back, or I mean a wide receiver. And even like this is when people start talking about RJ Harvey, right? Because we're getting into that dead zone. Now you're talking about unproven rookies, right?
Yeah, I love RJ Harvey, by the way, in those later rounds, maybe 7. I mean, we'll get to those rounds later, but RJ Harvey on that offense. I actually got to see him in person when they played Temple last year. And I mean, that guy just has quicks like no other. I think that he might actually turn out to be better than Omarion Hampton, believe it or not.
And there's still even, we're in the top of the 5th round now. There's still guys that are number 1 wide receivers. We just brought up Cortland Sutton, right? So you could still hit on a number 1 wide receiver here. And the running backs, it's just rough with the running backs, right? And now you're going to start seeing the wide receiver 2s, the good wide receiver 2s start going, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, aside from him, you're looking at Devontae Smith, Jerry Jeudy, Jalen Waddle.
Yeah, they're good number 2s. They're top of the league number 2s,
Yeah.
And they definitely get targets. And like I said, we'll hit on those guys next week. We don't want to go too deep into the 5th round.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fun. It's been fun. We've already broken down 1 through 4. This, like I said, it's gonna get rough, right? 5, 6. This is when you're really hoping, right? We're really gonna be giving our deep sleepers here soon, right?
Oh yeah, I mean by the end of the 6th round here, I mean there's going to be some reaching going on. There's going to be guys where you're like, man, he's really had one productive season. Do I really think he's going to have another one? Type of thing.
Right, exactly. All right, well, I think we'll end it there. Do wanted to give a big shout out to one of our Not Move podcast members. Today's his birthday, so today's Chief's birthday. So,
happy birthday, Chief.
Yeah, happy birthday, Kyle, Chief, whatever you want us to call you. But yeah, he's celebrating with his family, so I wanted to give a big shout out to Chief, good buddy of ours, of the Not Move family, celebrating his birthday today. He was grilling steaks. I was seeing he was grilling steaks and stuff. I'm like, you're living your best life, man. I'm happy for you.
That's the way to live it up. Steaks and a beer, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, that's exactly how I'd celebrate. So, all right, awesome, Otis. I will see you next week. We were talking maybe about even changing our fantasy football to Wednesdays, possibly before, when the season starts.
Yep, just before the season starts. We probably might go next Sunday again, and then after that, it'll be on Wednesdays. Thanks for tuning into the Not Move podcast, Fantasy Football, where stats become stories.
All right, Otis. Have yourself a great weekend, buddy.
You too, bud.
All right.